Oh, hi, Sanjay. First of all,
Hi,
it's
George.
great to see you again. As you know, we managed to catch up with each other last year, which was a really interesting conversation, and I'm looking forward to having another conversation with you. The primary sort of purpose of this is we've got a We3 summit coming up in November, where the topic is very much focused around decarbonisation as a follow-up to some of the things that we've seen in utilities around digitalization. So it's nice for us to sort of maybe explore the decarbonisation side of things, but also revisit a couple of the points that we talked about when we met last time. So particularly around customer centricity, around regulation, around smart metering, data, digitalization. But we'll also touch around for decarbonisation, we'll touch around e-mobility, some of the fantastic things I know that you've been working on. So perhaps I could start by asking you to briefly introduce yourself and Tata Power.
Thanks, George, for having me on this show. I'm Sanjay Banga, and I take care of transmission and distribution system in Tata Power. And in transmission and distribution, we have 7 distribution entities serving around 12 million customers. And in transmission, we have a company which brings power from Bhutan to India. So these 12 million customers we serve through 7 distribution entities. Delhi capital is served by Tata Power, 1/3 of the capital. Then the Mumbai we serve electricity, and also 4 other discoms where we serve electricity and ensure that the customer get 24/7 supply, a good quality supply, reliable supply.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that. I guess before we sort of move on to just talking a little bit about the digitalization work that you were doing last year, or rather over the last years, could you just briefly explain what does sustainability mean to Tata Power? How embedded is it in the organization as a primary strategy? How important is it, as a major organization within this industry, but also within the country of India? So I wonder if you could just introduce a little bit about what that means.
Okay, so India has a plan for in a big way to infuse more and more renewable and become a kind of an energy independent nation. And we have planned to have around 500 gigawatt of renewable by 2030, and the 50% of our power generation in India will be from clean green energy, and that's what the federal government plan. It has been declared widely. And the entire focus of government is right now to have 500 gigawatt by 2030. And out of this 500 gigawatt, if we see present situation, then our installed capacity is around 24% in renewable capacity. But the generation point of view, we have around 11% energy consumed by renewable. So this share has to go from 11-12% to 50%. Now, there are various mechanisms which is facilitating this 50% consumption by 2030. One is the regulation part, which is ensuring that all distribution utilities, when they are supplying power to customers, a certain portion of their portfolio has to be renewable. That's a mandatory, and if DISCOM doesn't comply to that, or DISCO doesn't comply to that, they have to pay penalty for that. The second is the government has lowered the open access band. So any consumer who is more than 100 kilowatt, then he can take green power from not only from distribution company, but he can take power from outside also. So not many avenues are getting generated where more and more renewable power would be there in grid. At the same time, the technologies will enable that the grid remains resilient. But yes, I would say the focus is there from the regulatory side, from policy side, that the renewable have to be there, and that will ensure sustainability in that way.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, given that we want to move into the decarbonisation conversation quite quickly, I think it is important. When we spoke last time, you were very excited about the work that you were doing for customers around customer centricity. It was very interesting to hear what you're doing around smart metering, around data and analytics, and also around grid resilience. So I think it would be wrong for us to move past those topics without giving you the chance to update us on a few of the exciting things that you've done, and what have you learned, what are the benefits, what does the horizon look like? So if that would be okay.
Sure, George. So last time we discussed that how COVID has accelerated the digitalization pace in India, and that's true. Now, what is happening is that increasingly the utilities have started realizing that their job is not to supply electricity, but to manage customers' energy in most efficient way. Because the customer may not be managing his energy in the efficient way. Now, instead of someone else doing that job, can distribution utility themselves can do that job. And customer has more trust on utility as compared to someone else. Now, what in Tata Power we have started using is we are taking each customer as a unique customer. We are not talking in general about customer satisfaction and those things. We are going into the more detailed part of that and ensuring that customer experience has to be unique because each customer is unique. So now we have developed a platform where we have clubbed all services which are related to customer, whether he wants EV related issues, when he wants a rooftop solar, then he has access to that portal. When he has any electricity related issue, where he wants to see his consumption pattern or get more detail or insight of those consumption, everything we have brought on one platform. So if he has a requirement of, let's say, to ensure that his home consumption is efficient, he can even opt for some home automation products, or he can get his energy calculated that if this is what is my device's consumption, is my monthly consumption is within those bands or not. So we have started giving a unique customer experience rather than going for customer satisfaction. The good part in India as a policy, the central government have told all state discoms that they should go for a smart metering. So that will mean that the huge amount of funding is coming federal government to these distribution companies for smart metering. And once you have smart meters for all these consumers, then the analysis of this metering data will further accelerate the experience you can provide to consumer. So good part that the federal government is giving that push for smart metering, and there's a very big project from government. And the second is the utilities have started realizing that they have to provide energy management services, not just serving electricity. And the third component, which is now accelerating this, is the customer expectation also, because they also want that the utility should not consider them as a general customer, but rather cater to his unique requirements. So it's a three-type push: the push from the customer in terms of his more expectation, the government because of the different reasons the distribution companies are not doing well, and they find that if smart metering is implemented, the system will be more robust and more commercially efficient. So bringing smart metering, which will bring more data, and utility can leverage that data to provide a unique experience to them. So Tata Power in that way is going ahead in that way. Right, and it has created a platform where it gives all bouquet of services to customer, whether it's related to energy efficient services, whether it is related to home automation, whether it is related to any query which is related to EV and a customer expect that, or it is related to energy efficiency services. So that is what now we have started providing. The last time when we were discussing, our few utilities were in a different phase of maturity. But now, in last 2 years, we realized that there need to be a one platform for all distribution utilities, bringing all services on that platform and serve customer in a much better way.
That's amazing to hear. I mean, there are a couple of really important terms that came out in what you just said. I mean, the first one that sort of hit me really hard was moving from customer satisfaction to a unique customer experience, very personalized, very centered around the needs of a customer, which is a nice extension of, our customers are thinking a little bit more as citizens as well as just customers. So they're caring about the environment, they care about how they live their lives. The second thing that hit me really hard was how you described that you have a single platform to meet all of these needs, a sort of concierge type model. or how you're becoming a platform business where it's a one-stop shop for everything that customer wants. These are so progressive. I hear from different parts, from different people around the world talk about this, but I haven't really met an organization that has truly embedded all of this into what they're doing in their strategy. So it's fantastic to hear that. Can I ask you a quick question about grid resilience and how you bring in the sort of the microgrid or the different ways of managing the grid within the model that you've just described around customers, around a unique experience, bearing in mind that we've got prosumers now, so they're participating in the grid, you might say.
No, I couldn't get you, George. You're talking about microgrid.
Yeah, what I was interested in was we talked about the customer, the unique experience, the one-stop platform. I'm interested in how you're bringing in the grid aspect to that in terms of people have got solar distributed energy resources in their homes and businesses now. So is there a grid component coming into that too?
So as a part of renewable push, which the federal government is trying, they have come out with a scheme where all our agriculture demand can be met by solar. And they are giving subsidy or the concessional rate to farmers where they can install solar pumps so that they are not drawing power from grid, but rather they are consuming power from solar. So there are different incentive schemes which has been launched by government. On the microgrid part, the good part which has happened in last 5 years in India is that each home has been electrified. There was a situation when 10 or 15% of India was not electrified. But under a scheme from federal government, the entire India is now electrified and each and every household has electricity connection. Now, where it has given connection or it is electrified each and every home, the microgrid concept which was conceived there for those remote places, actually the government has funded and brought electricity to those places and the progress of microgrid in that way is dampened. But some of the rural areas is still the reliability of electricity is an issue. And to address that part, the Tata Power has a wing of microgrid where they take the rural customers and give him a microgrid supply where they take care that his total cost of electricity remains in the cost of discoms. So distributed microgrid systems in different parts of countries are coming. But if you ask me that those are accelerating, no, those are not accelerating because the government has electrified everything. But the alternate of that to the agriculture customers, the government has come out with a big scheme of solar pumps. And there are farmers who are installing solar pumps and they are no more depending upon discom. So that way, it is more of the distributed generation using the renewable power and the less dependence on grid. And the grid is also in that way is in better position because these agricultural farmers were subsidized. So even the cost of power was, let's say, $1, the cost to these customer was cent in few cents, right? And this cost was paid by some other category of customers. So once these farmers go for solar, that much energy is saved and the tariff for other customer comes down. So it's good for farmer in terms of renewable, good for other customers because its tariff is coming down, and good in terms that it's a green power, which is replacing the conventional power. So again, a point which you touched in the very beginning was the sustainability part.
No, it's really good to hear that because that's a great example of a circular economy in the sense that you're using solar to power water pumps for farmers to irrigate their crops. That's a nice way of joining up the circle. That gives us a nice sort of link into let's talk a little bit about decarbonisation. I know when we spoke last time, you talked a little bit about some of the initiatives that you were planning, particularly around e-mobility, particularly around some other sustainability and net zero ambitions. Can I ask you to talk a little bit more about the decarbonisation aspects, just feeding off the idea of the solar pumps and those other ideas that we talked about just?
The Tata Power as a company is now have decided that it will no more will be in thermal. So we are not acquiring any thermal assets. We are not setting up any greenfield thermal projects as such. Our entire focus is completely on renewable. We are also trying to bring in the battery component in that so that we can give 24/7 supply and trying to match or trying to align our entire execution strategy in line with federal government strategy of 50% generation from renewable. We have decided to be in a very big way in EV, and today we are the largest player in terms of charging infrastructure we have. For the purpose of further decarbonization, we took it with regulators to ensure that the customer has a choice. He has a choice to take conventional power. He has a choice to take green power. And the good part is, George, the regulator has approved that, okay, if a customer asks for green power, the DISCOM has to give green power. And that regulation is passed by many state governments, because in India, electricity is a subject where the regulations are made by state governments. It's no more a federal government who decides, except the law which they make. So each state government is now started coming out with green energy tariff. And in Mumbai alone, we have around 30,000 consumers, residential consumers, who just said that for environment, for decarbonization point of view, we want green power. So every month we give them green certificate. We ensure that we buy that much renewable power from grid, from the renewable generators. And that advocacy from Tata Power side has led to many states coming with the green tariff, and which is a very good step in terms of decarbonization. We have also started a kind of a practice where we have a company which is known as Tata Power Trading, is talking to all industries, where it says that now there is, since there is less charges on green energy transmission, it is good that you take care of your business, your entire electrical infrastructure and the power management will be taken care by Tata Power, right? So it's more of a utility as a service to those industries, or rather the new industries, where we believe in sustainability. We are telling them, okay, we'll take care of your electrical infrastructure and we will also bring you green power. We are setting a few merchant green solar power plants to cater to those industrial requirements. And that is where we are thinking that our big push on setting up merchant renewable power plants or solar or wind power plant, combining it with battery or hydro, will be giving green power to industries. Because those industries, because of the government push on manufacturing in India, the many industries have started coming up. And these industries don't know much about the electrical systems and the power management part. And that is where we are bringing a component of sustainability there, where we tell them that we manage your infrastructure, we bring your power, and we will take care of your entire energy requirement, and we will ensure that even your devices are energy efficient. So supplying them green power, managing their power portfolio, and leading a step towards more and more sustainability.
There's so many topics in there, Sanjay. You used the term utility as a service. It's one of those things that I've heard about on many occasions, but I haven't really met anybody like yourself that has sort of taken that to the next level. That's so exciting to hear. It's also very exciting that you talk about managing the service, not just delivering the service, so that you're linking to devices and you're providing insights to really help people manage their energy needs. That there are so many things in there that are setting Tata Power up to be a real utility of the future, which I've seen talked about within your annual report. But perhaps I could ask you, just as we sort of start to think about wrapping our conversation up, there are so many things that we've talked about that other people would benefit from, the lessons that you've learned. Some of the things are hard, some of them have worked really well, but I'm sure there's lots of lessons. I'd be really interested for you to share a couple of those lessons and any advice that you might give to other utilities around the world that will be observing what you're doing and be wanting to learn from your experience.
Yeah, so 2, 3 points I would like to share because we recently acquired few distribution companies. We started transforming them, and the quick results we have received clearly shows that the utility have to be completely eh, adopted to new technologies, or rather they should take new technologies, and it's a technology and digitalization which is going to make difference between efficient utility and inefficient utility. The second point, which I touched briefly, data is key, and the consumer want a very unique experience. He doesn't want a general experience, and our common platform where we bring different services and try to understand customer better, and then packaging a solution which is specific to that consumer. I think utilities should go ahead for that part, that it is no more customer satisfaction, but each unique requirement of customer utility has to analyze, and they can do it by using data analytics and serve his customer need. It's not that you need more resources, but rather you need good digital technologies to cater that. So all in all, if I say one is the digital, the utilities has to be more and more digital. The entire culture of organization has to be built on that digital is something which we will leverage and which will be differentiator for us. And second, the analysis of data to giving customer a unique experience. I think these are the two things which I will tell each utility to take care in future, because that is required and that is going to be give them a competitive advantage.
Thank you very much for that. And just picking up on a couple of the points, you mentioned digitalization, data, etc. How important, in your words, how important is that for Tata Power to achieve its decarbonization goals? Can you achieve the goals just through the supply side, or is this sort of interaction with the customer and the demand side an absolutely critical component of that?
So, George, it's a combined effort. If the
Yeah.
utility want and customers don't want it, it's not possible. It's a combined effort by utility. It should not just follow policies, but it rather than should advocate for sustainability and green. That's an additional responsibility. A utility should stay in spite that it may not be the mandatory requirements from regulatory side. So that's a kind of I call it as a responsible utility, right?
Okay.
Customers are becoming increasingly aware of environment and sustainability. So if they get green power by paying a cent, they opt for green power. So that requires the right kind of customer awareness program, which should be launched by utility as such. So it's not a responsibility of a utility, I would say. It's a combined responsibility which will finally lead to net zero. Because in Tata Power, we said by 2050 will be net zero. There will not be any thermal assets which will be there. And why we are saying to 2050? Because some of our power projects which we installed a few years back have a long-term power purchase agreement which will be ending in 2040 or 2042. So the moment those contracts are over, we will be completely on renewable path, and we will be a net zero company in that way. So we are striving for that journey. We are striving to reach that goal of net zero by 2050. But at the same time, when we are doing it and we are ensuring that we are net zero, we are ensuring that the customer to whom we serve also have the similar kind of mindset. And that is how the country will realize the 500 gigawatt of renewable is getting produced and consumed, not thermal part, which is a significant part of our generation today.
It's great to hear that, because again, I have the privilege of talking to a lot of people around the world, but it's one of the first times that I've heard somebody say that you've got to operate your company in a responsible way in terms of supplying energy and operating the networks and so on. But you've also got a major role to play in helping your customers achieve their own sustainability targets. And the cumulative effect of those two things are really what will contribute to the government's ambition and regulators' ambition around these things. But perhaps in the last few moments, could I ask you a little bit about the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. I know from your annual report and from a number of the press items regarding Tata Power that you have adopted these principles, and they play a significant role in shaping your strategy and shaping your roadmap. I just wondered if, because SEW has also joined the United Nations Global Compact, and we're subscribing to the SDGs very much so. So I'm very interested in your view around those.
Oh, no, that's fantastic. So I already touched on these points, George, that we have decided not to be on thermal. We have decided that we will make all efforts to ensure that our portfolio remains green. And we have declared that by 2050, we will be net zero. And in fact, by 2030 and before that, we will be net zero in terms of water also.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let me first of all thank you very much for your time today. I think what you've shared has been fascinating. The idea that it's not about customer satisfaction, it's about a unique customer experience. And that experience has to bring in a number of other factors, not just how much does the energy cost, how reliable is the energy, but also how are you using it responsibly and for the good of the planet. The idea of adopting platform technologies to enable some of this and providing a one-stop shop and becoming a sort of utility of the future or delivering utility as a service are fantastic to hear. And then moving on to the sustainability things, there's so many powerful topics and very compelling programs that you've put together. I just want to say a massive thank you for sharing your time with us today. And this is very, very topical for the WE3 Summit in November that SEW and Z Prime are hosting, because these are the topics that will drive that. So let me just say thank you again. I really appreciate everything you've said. Are there any topics that we haven't talked about that you feel should be part of this just before we wrap this up?
No, thank you, George. Thank you very much for having me on this show. You touched a very relevant point on sustainability, on decarbonization. You also touched on point of decentralized generation, and that is where Tata Power has a very big focus. All in all, the last point which I just wanted to mention again, which I touched, that the job of utility is not to supply electricity, but to bring more and more efficiency in managing electricity or energy at customer end. So we have to see everything by keeping customer at the center and ensure that every penny he spent, he is getting properly utilized in energy services. Because if a distribution utility will not cater to his requirement in a system where completely you get exposed by data, those inefficiency will be catered by someone else. So it's a great opportunity for utilities across the world to identify inefficiencies in the energy chain, which are there when they are serving customer, and address them proactively.
Terrific. Thank you so much again. And
pleasure, George. Thank you very much.
We'll close it there.